What is your personal why and how are you manifesting it in your business?
I would say my personal why is creating and teaching.
How do you stumble upon this portfolio of activities and put them all into a business?
Been in music, songwriter, producer, rapper since I was a child. Then, got older, grew up, got into business, really became passionate about training and educating.
How do you use rap to teach people?
Our philosophy is this: when you listen to it, it should sound like a good song. The value of music is once you learn the song, you learn the concept.
Level up your business. Get my free insights every week at stevebreda.com/newsletter. Good day, dear listeners. Steve Breda here, the founder of the Summit OS Group, developing the Summit OS business operating system. And my guest today is Jason William Johnson, who is a PhD, the founder of SoundStrategist. His team designs AI-powered learning experiences and deploys intelligent coaching systems for enterprises and entrepreneur support organizations, blending music, gamification, and experiential learning to drive real skill development and engagement. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
I'm excited to have you and to learn about how you blend music and learning and all that together. But to start with, I'd like to ask you my favorite question. What is your personal why and how are you manifesting it in your business?
I would say my personal why is creating and teaching. Those are my two passions. So when I was younger, I was always a creative. I did music, writing, and a variety of other things. So I've always been passionate about creating, but I've also been passionate about teaching. I've been informally a teacher for my entire adult life, coaching, training. I've also been an actual professor also. So through SoundStrategist, I'm kind of combining those two passions, the passion for teaching and imparting wisdom, along with the passion for creating through music, the AI-powered experiences, the gamification, and all of those different things. So I'm really in my happy place.
Yeah, sounds like it. Sounds like you're very excited talking about this. So this is quite an unusual type of business, and I wonder how do you stumble upon this kind of combination, this portfolio of activities, and put them all into a business? How did that come about?
So, Liam Neeson says I have a unique combination of skills, like on taking. I guess that's kind of like how I kind of came up with SoundStrategist. So pretty much been in music for forever, been a music songwriter, producer, rapper, since I was a child. My father was a musician, so it's kind of like a genetic skill that I kind of adopted and was cultivated at an early age. So I was always passionate about music. Then got older, grew up, got into business, really became passionate about training and educating. So pretty much started off pretty much running entrepreneurship centers. My whole career has been in small business and economic development. So SoundStrategist was a happy marriage of the two when I realized, I can actually use rap to teach entrepreneurship and to teach leadership skills and to teach, now AI and a variety of other things. So pretty much it was just that fusion of things. And then when we launched the company, it was around the time where ChatGPT came out. So we wanted to really make sure that we were building it to be AI first. And at first we were just using AI in our business operations. But then we started experimenting it for client work, like integrating AI powered coaches in some of the training programs we were running and things like that. And that really proved to be really valuable because one of the things when I was running programs in my career was you always want to have the learning side and the coaching side, because the learning side generalizes the knowledge for everybody and kind of level sets everybody, but everybody's business or everybody's situation is extremely unique. So you need to have that personalized support and assistance. And when we were running programs in the entrepreneurship centers I were running and things like that, we would always have human coaches. AI enabled us to kind of scale coaching for some of the programs we were building in SoundStrategist through AI. So with me been a business coach for over 15 years, I knew how to kind of train the AI chatbots. And it started off as like chatbots. Now it's like full agents that uses voice and all of those other things. But it kind of started off as let's put some chatbots in some of our courses and some of our programs to kind of reinforce the learning, to kind of personalize it. And then it just kind of developed from there.
So there's a lot in there. I'd like to unpack some of that stuff. So when you say use rap to teach, I'm thinking about rap is kind of a form of poetry. So how do you use poetry or how do you use rap to teach people? Is it more catchy if it is delivered in the form of a rap song? How does it work?
So you kind of want to make it catchy. Our philosophy is this: when you listen to it, it should sound like a good song, right? Because there's this real risk of it sounding corny if it's done wrong, right? So we always focus on let's create good music first and foremost when we're creating a music-based lesson. So it should be a good song. It should be something that you hear and you're like, oh, between the chorus, between the music, it should sound good. But then there's the value of music is once you learn the song, you learn the concept, right? Because once you memorize the song, you memorize the lyrics, which means you memorize the concept. So one of the things that we also make sure we try to do is we try to introduce concepts. The best way I could describe this is this, and this is might be funny, but I grew up in the 90s, pretty much, a lot of the rappers talked about selling drugs and stuff like that. Never sold a drug in my life, but just by listening to rap music and them introducing the concepts, if I ever decided to like go bad, I would have a working theory, right? So the same thing with entrepreneurship and the same thing with business principles. You can create songs that introduce the concepts in a way where if a person's never done it, they're introduced to the vocabulary, they're introduced to the lived experiences, they're introduced to the core principles, and then they can take that and then they can go apply it and have a working theory on how to execute in their business. So that's kind of the philosophy that we took. Like, let's make it memorable music, but then let's introduce key vocabulary, let's introduce lived experiences, let's introduce key concepts, so that when people are done listening to the song, they memorize it, they embody it, they connect with it. Now they have a working theory to do whatever the song's about.
And are you using AI to actually write the song? Or
No, we're not. We're not. That's one of the things we haven't really integrated on the AI front because the AI is not good enough to take what's exactly in my head and turn it into a song. It's good for somebody who doesn't have any songwriting capability or musical capability to like create something that's cool. But as a musician, as somebody who writes, you have a vision in your head on how something should sound sonically. And the AI is not good enough to take what's in my head and put it into a song. Now, what we are using some of the AI tools like Suno for is like background music. So at first we used that to create all our background music for our courses from scratch. We are using some of the AI to help with some of the background music and everything and all of that so that we can have original stuff as opposed to having to use licensed stuff on like Epidemic Sound and stuff like that. So we are using it for like the background music, but for like actual music-based lessons, we're still doing those old school.
Okay, that's pretty good. We are going to dive in a little bit deeper here, but before we go there, I'd like to talk about the framework that you're bringing to the show. I think we called it the AI for Deep Experts framework.
That's the working title right now. But yeah, we're still finalizing, but that's the working title. Yeah.
This. But the idea is that, at least this is what I understand, that if someone has deep domain expertise, then AI can be a real accelerator and amplifier of this domain expertise.
Yep.
So people who are listening to this and they have domain expertise and they want to do AI so that they can deliver it to more people, reach more people, create more value. What is the framework? What is the 5-step framework to get them there?
Number one, provided you have deep expertise, you should be able to identify a core pain point in your respective industry that needs solving. Maybe it's something that you know throughout your career you wanted to solve, but you weren't able to get the resources allocated to get it done in your job, or maybe it required some technical talent and you weren't a developer or whatever, right? But you should be able to identify what's a pain point, a sticking pain point that needs to be solved. And if it's solved, could really create value for customers. Knew about that. That's just old school, opportunity recognition. Number two, now the great thing about AI is now you can leverage AI to do a lot of deep research on the problem. So obviously you're going to have your conversations to kind of understand the pain point further. You're going to kind of look at your own lived experiences and things like that. But now you can leverage an AI tool like using Perplexity or Claude to do deep research on the market opportunity. So now, whether or not you have experience in market research, you can have an AI tool to help you identify the total addressable market. You can brainstorm with it to identify additional pain points and to help you flesh out your value proposition, your concept statement, all of those things that's critical to communicate the offering, right? Because before we transact in money, we always transact in language, right? So pretty much The AI can help you with articulating the value proposition, understanding the pain point, all of those different things. And then also, if you have like deep expertise and you haven't really turned it into a framework, the AI can help you framework it and then develop a workflow to deliver value. So now you have the framework, you have the market understanding, and all of those different things. The AI's even helped you think through what would a product look like, the user experience, the workflow, things like that. Now you can use an AI-powered tool to help you build that. So you can use something like Lovable, you can use something like Bolt, you can use something like Cursor, all different AI-powered tools. For people who are newer to development, who've never done development, I would recommend something like Lovable or maybe Bolt. But like once you kind of get good and you want to make sure that you're able to really build like production-ready software, then you want to move to something like Cursor, which is kind of built, it has a large enough context window. Context window is basically the memory of an AI tool. It has a large enough context window to like deal with complex code bases. And a lot of engineers, that's what they're using to build real production ready platforms. But for MVP, Bolt, Lovable are more than good enough. So one of the things I recommend when building with one of these tools is to do what's called a PRD prompt. So PRD stands for Product Requirements Document. For those who aren't familiar with software development, typically, and this is not even really happening anymore, but traditionally with software development, you would have the product manager create a product requirements document. So this basically outlines the goals of the platform, target audience, core features, database architecture, technology stack, all of the different things that engineers would need to do in order to build the platform. So you can go to something like Claude or you can go to ChatGPT and you can say, create a PRD prompt and then your app idea. Give as much detail as possible about it, the features, how it works, brand colors, all of those different things. And then the AI tool, whether you're using Chat, Claude, or whatever, or Gemini, will create your PRD prompt. So it's going to be like this really, 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 really long prompt, but it's going to have all of the things that the AI tool, the web building tool, the app building tool needs to know in order to build the platform. It's going to have all the specifications. So you copy and paste this.
Is it what people call vibe coding?
Yeah, this is like with vibe coding, right? But the PRD prompt helps you become more effective at vibe coding because it gives the AI the specifications that it needs and the language that it understands to increase the likelihood that you build your platform correctly, right? Because once you build the PRD prompt, the AI is going to know, okay, this is the database structure. It's going to know this is a React app versus this is a Next.js app. It's going to know, okay, we're building a front end with Netlify. Stuff that you may not know, the AI will know, and it will like build the platform for that. So then you take that prompt, you paste it in Lovable, you paste it in Cursor, and then you can kind of get into your vibe coding thing. Don't let like the hype fool you, because a lot of people will say, oh, I built this app in 15 minutes using Lovable. It still requires some time. But if you can build a full stack application in 2 weeks, when it typically takes several months, that's still like super fast. So pretty much on average, like you can build something in a couple weeks. And then, if you're, especially once you kind of get familiar, you can build something in a couple weeks. But if this is your first time ever doing this, just pay attention to some of the, like when the app debugs and some of these other things, start paying attention because you're going to learn certain things by doing. And as you kind of go through the process, you'll start understanding, okay, this is what an edge function is. This is what a backend is. This is what, you'll start learning these different things as you're going through the process, right? So you get the platform built. Now the next step is you want to distribute the platform. So obviously, if you've been in your industry for a while, you have some expertise, you should have some distribution. You should have some folks in your space who's your ICP that you can kind of start having some customer conversations with and start trying to sell the platform. One of the things that I always recommend is going B2B and selling something for significant value as opposed to like going B2C and selling a bunch of $19.99 subscriptions. And the reason is for a couple different reasons. Number one, when you have to do a lot of volume, your business model becomes more complicated. And then you have to introduce things to manage that volume. Whereas if you're selling a solution that's a 5-figure to 6-figure offering, like 10 clients, 15 clients, the amount of money that you can get to with less complexity in your business model. So I always say, go B2B, at least 5-figure offering annually. Because I know most of the offerings that we offer at least high 5 figures, low 6 figures, subscriptions, SaaS is licensing or whatever. And that way it just introduces less complexity to your business model, and it allows you to get to as much revenue as possible. And then, as you go to market, you're going to learn. So the learning aspect, you're going to learn maybe customers want this or this feature. We thought the people were going to use the platform this way, but they're actually using it this way. So you're always learning and you're always evolving and you're adjusting the offering.
Okay, so let's say I have deep expertise in some areas, maybe investment banking or whatever, and I want to use AI. I want to identify an industry pain point that I addressed or maybe I personally experienced. I visualize a solution, then I brainstorm with ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, figure out what to do, and then I leverage my AI tools, my cursor, my lovable board. I set the price point, I go to B2B. Is this something that, as a subject matter expert, is this efficient for me to do this because I have the expertise and I have the vision, or it's better for me to hire someone to do this?
It depends on what your bandwidth is. I mean, pretty much, I'm of the firm belief that like these are skills that you probably want to unlock anyway. So it might be worth going through the process of learning the tools, leveraging them and everything and all of that. And that's kind of how you future-proof yourself. Now, obviously, if you have bandwidth limitations, there's firms, there's organizations that you can hire, et cetera, that can kind of do it for you. Obviously, developers and things like that. But the funny thing about a lot of developers is, even though they're using AI, they're still charging the prices that they charged before AI, right? They're just getting it done faster and their margins are a lot lower. So you're still going to pay in a lot of instances like developer pricing for a platform. Those are the things that you have to consider as far as your own personal situation. But me personally I believe that these are skills that's worth unlocking. Because one of the things is like, if you get to like very senior in your career, let's say you've been there 15, 16 years in your career, 20 years in your career. And then we all know there's this point where you either move up to the C-suite or you get caught in upper middle management purgatory, where you're just kind of in that space of VP, senior director, et cetera, and you just kind of hover there. So now your moves career-wise go like are lateral. I'm going from one VP role to another VP role, one senior director role to another senior director role, right? At that point, your income potential kind of gets limited. So unlocking one of these skills and kind of becoming more entrepreneurial, I just think is worth developing the skill set personally.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say is the time requirement for someone to get competent in vibe coding?
3 months minimal. You could be pretty solid in 3 months.
But 3 months full-time or 3 months part-time?
3 months part-time.
So 3 months, so it's 143 working hours in a regular month. So that's basically 420, 430 hours if you're full-time.
If you spend weekends working on your project and learning how to build it, taking note of things, and just actually like going through the process, you can get pretty decent in a couple months. Now, obviously, there's still levels, as you continue and you progress and things like that, but you can get pretty solid in a couple months. Now, and also there is another thing you want to consider. Depending on who you're selling to, you obviously want to make sure that your platform security is really done. So even if you build it yourself and then you have like an engineer do code review, that's cheaper than having them build it. I think if you spend 3 months, you can get really good at building solutions for what you need to get done. And then from there, you just get better and better and better and better and better.
How do I know that, let's say I hire someone in Serbia to do code review for me. Let's say I learned this vibe coding thing. I create the prototype. Then I have someone to clean the code. How do I know that they did a good job or not?
You really don't. Right? You really don't know until the platform's in the wild and it's like, okay, it's secure. So there are some things that you can do to check behind people. Because let's say you don't have the money to do security, hire somebody for security review, a developer for security review. One of the things that you can do is you can do multi-agent review. Like you take your code base, you have Claude Code review it, you have OpenAI Codex review it, you have Cursor Agent review it, you have multiple agents do a review, and then they kind of check each other's work, if you will. They kind of identify things that others may not have identified. So you can get the collective wisdom of those three to be able to be like, okay, I shored this up, I shored this up, I shored this up, I shored this up, to kind of give you some confidence. It still doesn't replace a person who like has deep expertise and, making sure they build secure code, but it will identify things like putting your API and your hard coding your API, which is a risk, right? It'll catch those type of things that typically happen. But let's say you do have a code review, you can just kind of take that same approach also to check their work, because they shouldn't find any major vulnerabilities. The AI agents that come in after it shouldn't really find any major vulnerabilities if it was like done securely. And then another thing too is, like, a lot of these tools use Supabase for the back end as far as the databases. Supabase also has a security advisor in the platform, like a AI security advisor that points out errors in the code, performance issues, and all of those different things. So like you do have some AI powered check and balances to kind of check behind people.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So basically, I can audit. There are applications that will audit the code and tell me what needs to improve.
Yeah,
And
and
then
then
I
they can make the fixes for you.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. It still sounds a little bit overwhelming. It's a language basically, and a new language to learn, isn't it?
It's not really it's English. That's the amazing thing about it. It's English. I mean, you literally talk to AI using natural language and it builds stuff for you, which is like, if somebody's like had an idea for a minute, because I mean, pretty much running entrepreneurship centers, I've known so many people who've had ideas that they never were able to like launch or build, and then they see somebody build it later. If you learn these skills, you get to the point where anything that's in your head, you can kind of start bringing it to life in reality. And even if you got to bring somebody in to like kind of, make sure it's secure and production ready, it's way cheaper than when you had to have them build it from scratch. And then another thing that you'll find also is, if you're able to build something, let's say you want to turn it to a startup or something, right? It's a lot easier to bring in a technical co-founder when they don't got to build the thing from scratch. And then they also see that you were able to build something. They're able to see your product vision, et cetera, et cetera. It becomes a lot more easier to recruit people who actually have that expertise into the company, because you've already kind of handled the hard part. You got something and it works. And it's like, all they got to do is just come in and just, make it, safe and make it work better.
Yeah. That is very interesting. It feels analogous to writing a book yourself or having a ghostwriter.
Mm-hmm.
Because essentially you are vibe coding with the ghostwriter, right? You tell the stories and then the ghostwriter will write the book for you. Probably now you can use AI
to do that. Yep.
But that's a skill. Not everyone has a skill that to be able to write it themselves, and then they need to go to the ghostwriter, but still it's their book, right?
Yep.
So it sounds a little bit similar. That's fascinating. So what's the path to launching an MVP? So let's say, I'm subject matter expert. I want to launch an MVP within a few weeks. Is there a path for me to go there?
Once you get good with the platform, once you get cool with the tools, yeah. Like, so for example, we're launching an AI platform. It's an AI coaching platform, but it's also a data analytics platform. So basically, it's targeted to entrepreneur support organizations and municipality supporting small businesses. So on the front end is an AI powered advisor that it's a hotline that they can call 24/7. But on the back end, the municipalities, the entrepreneur support organizations get access to analytics from each of those calls. We built this in 2 weeks. We're already talking to customers. We're already having conversations and all of those things. But we literally brought it to market in 2 weeks. So the thing is, like, once you kind of get good with the tools, and I'm not like a developer. I'm not a developer by trade at all. Like, I had a tech startup before, but I was a non-technical founder. I just know how to put together a product. But once you kind of get good with the tools, that's very conceivable. And then you just go out there and you go in the market, you start having conversations with your ideal customer profile. As you're going through that process, you're learning, okay, maybe this isn't my ideal customer profile. This is their pain point. Or maybe instead of this being the feature they want, this is the feature they want. And the crazy thing about it is, in the past, you had to really get that ICP real tight and the feature set real tight, because it costed so much money to go back and have to make tweaks and changes and to get it to market in the first place. Now you can get a new feature added in the afternoon. It allows you to go to market a little bit faster. You don't have to have the ideal like feature set. You don't have to have the ICP figured out. You get out there, you learn, and then you're able to iterate a lot faster, because the cost of development is super cheap now, and the speed in which like new features can be added or deprecated is a lot faster. So it allows you to go to market a lot faster than in the past.
Okay, So I got it. You can do this. You can code. What do you recommend for someone who's starting out? You mentioned Lovable, Bold, and then Cursor. Is Cursor like an advanced product, or you would?
Cursor's a little bit more advanced, but if you want to build production ready software, it's something you're going to have to eventually start
But can
using.
you convert from Lovable to
Yes,
Cursor
you
later?
can. Yep. So what you typically do, so I still do this to this day. So for every time I launch a product, I build it in Bolt first. So you could Bolt or Lovable, either one's fine. I use Bolt though, but because Bolt came out first, and that's what I started using first. But then Lovable came out like a month later. But I use Bolt. I'll spin up the idea in Bolt, and the reason I like doing it in Bolt or Lovable is it's really good at doing two things. It's really good at quickly launching up your initial feature set and then spinning up your backend, your database. It's really good at that. So, I start off in Bolt, then I connect it to a repository. Like for those who aren't familiar with like GitHub, there's a button in Bolt or Lovable where you can easily connect it to a GitHub repository. So then once I kind of get the app to a point where the basic skeleton is set, then I go into Cursor, and then I get the repository in Cursor, and then I do the heavy work. So the reason Cursor has a learning curve is because there's still some traditional developer things you need to know to spin up a project. Your initial database, it's a lot more harder to spin up your initial database in your backend. In Cursor, it's a lot harder to identify like your initial like libraries and all of those things. It's just a little bit like if you're a developer, it's not difficult, but if you're new, it is. Bolt and kind of Lovable abstracts those things out for you. So you started off in Bolt and Lovable. So basically, since they're like limited in their context windows, and when you're trying to build it, eventually they start making a whole bunch of errors. They basically start getting stupid. That's when you know it's time to go to Cursor, because Cursor can handle like the heavy lifting. If you build in Bolt or Lovable until it gets stupid, then you move to Cursor for the heavy lifting.
And then is there a point where Cursor gets stupid as well?
No. So Cursor has a couple different things that allows it to extend its context window, which is its memory. So you can put documentation in Cursor. So like, for example, like whatever your PRD prompt was, you can put that as a document in Cursor. There's like rules you may have. One of my rules in my Cursor is like, I'm not technical, so explain everything in layman's terms, right? So, and then as you're starting to build code, you can save that code or you can point it to that repository. So there's some more flexibility with Cursor as far as managing your context window. But with Bolt and like Lovable, it's a little bit limited right now. So I start off in those, and then once I kind of get the skeleton up, then I move to Cursor. And at that point, a lot of the complicated things like spinning up your dev environment and all of those things are kind of abstracted out. So then you can just kind of get in and use it the same way you use Bolt and Lovable.
Fantastic. So, Jason, super helpful information for domain experts who want to build an application that will help them promote their product or manifest their ideas in the product form. I think that's super powerful. So if someone would like to learn about SoundStrategist and what SoundStrategist can do for them in terms of learning and experiential products, incorporating music, building a curriculum, or they would just like to connect with you to learn more about what you can do for them, where should they go?
So Jason William Johnson, PhD on LinkedIn, or getsoundstrategist.com.
Okay, well, Jason William Johnson, you're really ahead of the curve, especially connecting this whole idea of vibe coding to people who are subject matter experts, not technical. And you know it because you don't come from the technical side, but you mastered it.
I'm living it. Like everything I'm sharing, this is not like a theoretical framework. I'm living all of this. So everything that I'm saying,
super authentic, and especially from you, coming from you, you understand what it's like not being a technical person, learning this, applying this. So if you'd like to do this or learn more, or maybe have Jason guide you, reach out to him. You can find him on LinkedIn, Jason William Johnson, PhD, or getsoundstrategist.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you follow us, you subscribe on YouTube, follow us on LinkedIn, Apple Podcast, because every week I bring a super interesting entrepreneur, subject matter expert, or a combination of the two, like Jason, to the show, who will help you accelerate your journey with frameworks and with AI frameworks in that case. So thank you for coming, Jason, and thank you for listening. I appreciate you listening today. Stay connected. Sign up for my free weekly newsletter at stevepreda.com/newsletter.